Spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. Bopping along to our theme song right there. Thank you so much for being here. If you're joining us for the first time or if you just forgot my name, it's Corinne Fisher. Welcome to Without a Country. We look into the news from the perspective of the right, the left, and everywhere in between, and we find some truth because the truth is in there. All right. We, just so you know, the dates, we are pre-recording this episode on Sunday, November 9th, because it is Skank Fest this week. So literally like every single person who produces and engineers this show will be in New Orleans, all week working on that. So
I believe every producer who's ever worked on this show.
Well, I mean, some don't even work in the industry anymore.
Oh, right. No, I forgot. I
Alex, right?
Alec.
Alex,
you don't even remember his.
Sorry, Alec. Sorry.
He was so ineffectual. I completely forgot he existed.
Oh my God, we're
What?
bad mathing people.
He's a sweet man.
No, he made that really dope visual intro for the show that we don't use anymore.
Yeah.
Why don't we use that anymore?
I don't know. You want to start using it again?
I really liked that. I like Alec a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that feels like Mike and Alec have some unfinished business or something.
Would never say a bad word.
Oh
Producer, no kill producer.
Oh, okay. Well, you kind of just did. Anyway, but yeah, no, everyone who's ever like even temporarily been on the board. Yeah. All right. So anyway, just again, we try not to pre-tape, but more importantly than that, we guarantee you an episode every week. So I'm in here on a Sunday. I was out till 3:00 in the morning, New York Comedy Festival, and it up, babies. So we are here and we are delivering. Oh, this screw's gonna come out. All right. So first things first, speaking of New York Comedy Festival, if you have not gotten tickets to see Christina and I's Slutsgiving extravaganza show that is happening on Friday, November 14th, what are you doing? This is at the Crown Hill Theater in Brooklyn at 8 p.m. It is going to be our biggest, best show yet. It's our only live show that we're doing together in 2025. It's a love letter to 12 years of GWF. And yeah, it's going to be a show unlike any other that we've done. We have an awesome surprise guest. Eric Freddy will be there. Some other people from over the years will be there. It's going to be super fun. You're going to want to be there. Whether you've seen our live show before or not, it will be different and it will be just bigger and better. And it's a beautiful theater. Like, we haven't done a theater of that size in New York in a while. So again, it's well over half sold out. And I know we are in this like thing now where everyone loves to buy tickets the week of, which is like, I get it. No one has like any extra money. Something better might come up. It's like New Year's Eve syndrome all over again. You're like, oh, a hotter guy might call you. A hotter guy's not calling you. Get the tickets. I promise you, we are going to deliver. We take our live shows very seriously. And we're also doing a food drive, which we decided to do before the Snap drama went on. But now more than ever, it's important to make sure that food banks are stocked, because they start the week stocked and by the end of the week they have no supplies left. There's been more interviews with like heads of food banks this week than I've ever seen in my entire life. So that really helps us assess the gravity of the situation. And again, non-perishable food items. And make sure it's things that, you don't need extra elements. Like we were talking about this on GWF, but some things you need to like mix in like milk or butter. Make sure it's something that is easy to cook if you don't have access to a lot of things and if you don't have an additional elements. I think there's zero things that we have the luxury of not having to think about. And preferably if you're buying a can, one that has the top that you can open without a can opener. But I know that like can openers are also a really cool thing to donate to food banks. And you can do period supplies, you can do baby supplies, you can do pet food, all these kinds of things that we don't think of. If you have extra pet food or baby food, as long as it's sealed, that's a great thing to donate to a food bank. And so, yes, if you're coming to our show, do that. But also, if you don't live close by, that's a good thing to think about locally. I know we're always thinking about food banks, once a year during the Thanksgiving season. And it just so happens that coincidentally, as luck would have it, we're cutting SNAP benefits in the Thanksgiving season, which is like so amazing of this administration. On top of that, they're canceling all the flights. So you might not even, you won't have food and you won't get to see your family. Happy Thanksgiving from America. But that's what's going down. Just, a good time to do a little bit of what you can for your neighbors. I've seen a lot of stories online of people like kind of putting together food pantries on their front lawn. I'm sure depending on where you live, the cops will come and shut that down. But, just checking on your neighbors. Again, we talk about that a lot. I think, unfortunately, a lot of left-leaning people, seem to think of, donations and protesting like larger, with a larger world view. So they're looking at bigger world problems. I think that's what Democrats are really good at. And I think Republicans, honestly, are a little bit better at neighborly stuff and going to church and talking to the people within their community and maybe not going to those larger protests. I mean, unless it's like a coup on the Capitol. So, let's take elements from both and smash them together so we can all be doing our absolute best for people in our communities during this shitty ass time. All right. Let's get into Oh, yeah. Well, we are doing this early and the government is still shut down at this point. So I don't know when you watch this on Wednesday what the case will be. I started the morning by reading an article that's saying, our good old friend Lindsey Graham thinks he predicts it's going to be open back today, Sunday. But again, if it's not, maybe start looking into other Thanksgiving plans because I don't know that you're going to be able to get home for Thanksgiving. And while we're on the topic of Lindsey Graham, actually, I'm doing the show a little bit out of order because what we could do whatever we want. Let's talk about Lindsey Graham, actually, before we get into our enemy of the state, because this was announced a couple months ago, but I don't know that I even knew that this was happening. Lindsey Graham is going to be primaried, which Mike pointed out. So this is from Vanity Fair. It's from August of this year, but it's telling us a little bit about Paul Dance, who I think we've mentioned on the show before, who is the person primarying Lindsey Graham. It says cage match, a self-described MAGA Rambo is challenging Lindsey Graham. And the fun thing about a primary is when someone possibly worse than the sitting person is the challenger, which is really exciting. And there's a couple of those happening because here in New York, I mean, I actually like Governor Kathy Hochul, but she is being primaried by Elise Stefanik, who is, Trump's whipping girl, maybe we'll call her. So that's going to be a wildly interesting thing. I mean, I don't think there's any chance in hell that she'll win, but who knows with these people? Sometimes they pull out all the stops. Wild shit is going down. And then Mike, did you see, do you follow AOC on Instagram?
I'm sure I do.
Okay, because she's an interesting follow. I like that she just kind of hops on. I'm actually surprised sometimes about the things that she's allowed to say. And basically she said on an Instagram, I guess it was a live, maybe not a story, I'm not sure, but some type of Instagram live or story. She said that the reason Marjorie Taylor Greene is acting the way she is right now is because she wanted to run for Senate and Donald Trump told her no. Did you hear that?
Had not heard that.
Yeah, and number one, I was surprised that AOC is just spilling tea like that. Obviously she has more information, and during my race, I like to spill as much tea as legally possible. But I just thought that was so funny. I'm like, let me look it up. AOC said Marjorie wanted to run for Senate, and it's also so funny that Trump is just saying no. And they're listening. Yeah. So people.com go, AOC says Marjorie Taylor Greene is on a revenge tour against Trump. Here's some tea for you. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, yeah, you would kind of have to listen to the if the president says, hey, don't try for higher office right now, I will use the weight of MAGA against you.
Well, I mean, you could still try. Yes. Could it absolutely like decimate you? Yes. Oh, here's the information. During a lengthy Instagram live on Monday, November 3rd, Democratic Representative AOC explained what she believes is behind Green's sudden about face. Here's some tea for you. MTG, people are like, oh my God, she's saying all these things. Like, what's gotten into her lately? Oh, like she's bucking against Trump. She's bucking against the administration. The New York Congresswoman then offered her theory about the political pivot, saying Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to run for Senate in Georgia. She wanted to run for Senate earlier this year in the state of Georgia. She wanted to be the Republican nominee for Senate. So she was gearing up for that statewide race, and Trump told her no. Trump said no, and the White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate, and she has been on a revenge tour ever since. Which is kind of like a great way to handle it. So like if you're kind of like agreeing, like, yeah, you wouldn't run for Senate if like MAGA's going to be completely against you. It is funny. And this is why I love her. Again, this is why I wrote the joke about her where I'm like, she belongs to no party except for her own party, which is the party of being a crazy bitch. She's a loose cannon, which I actually think helps, because sometimes like if you're not seeing like the movement you want, and even some, obviously in this case it's for selfish reasons, but she's just going buck wild and kind of letting it rip, and I kind of like it. Like, yeah, do I think she can be trusted? No, but I gotta be honest, even the best of these people I don't think can be trusted. So let's see. Anyway, back
just to back her up a little bit. I mean, I think what she's quote unquote going crazy on is like, hey, release the Epstein list. And that's something that she was going on about. Like
that I love. Yeah.
Thomas Massie was not talking about this when Joe Biden was in office. MTG was. She's been consistent with that, whether or not this senatorial run is a factor in her bringing it up.
Well, no, she was doing that. I don't know. Like she's been doing that for a while with the Epstein files. That makes sense. Like if it was, I don't know, when they say earlier this year her ambitions were shut down, like how much earlier this year, because she's been doing that for a while.
No, but I'm talking, she's been doing this. She's literally been saying, she threatened when Biden was in office. She was like, hey, I'll come out here and just start reading the list if you guys want.
No, I know. That's literally what my joke is about, where she's, like no one is safe, which I actually think is kind of a good thing. It's like, it's that whistleblower. I mean, that's, how all Watergate went down, was like basically a nosy woman came in and was like, oh, I'll tell you. You want the tea? I'll tell you the tea. And I love that. Like, that's why historically, we have like the word gossip has a negative connotation, but historically gossip, like women's gossip, is actually kept women safe and given information out that needed to be passed around that was kind of being gatekept. Okay, so back to this Vanity Fair article about Lindsey Graham, the guy primarying Lindsey Graham. Paul Dans was the brains behind Project 2025. Woo, woo, that's the alarm going off because we're in trouble. The right-wing governing blueprint Trump is following. Now he's primarying Lindsey Graham in what he's framing as a cage match for the future of MAGA. Wow, exciting. Paul Dan speaks in a mashup of movie references. In discussing the primary campaign he just announced against longtime South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, he quotes Casablanca. When I saw him during an event held alongside the Republican National Convention last summer, he used the Matrix as an analogy for the deep state. And to describe himself, I'm kind of a MAGA Rambo, if you will, he tells me when I get him on the phone this week. And now it's my time to come out of the jungle, which like kind of funny, but also, this is what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, well, this is like a little bit more accessible language for people. And, if the way you get people to understand what you're trying to do is by making a movie reference, so be it. Dance, who is 56, came to the public's attention during the 2024 campaign as the mastermind behind Project 2025. The blueprint, which laid out plans to consolidate executive power, close down the Department of Education, and end diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, became a campaign trail liability to Donald Trump, who distanced himself from the document. As soon as he was in office, he began to follow it closely, which all of us wackos here knew was happening because we talked about it for damn near a year. We talked about it every week. We said, just so you know, Project 2025 is exactly what's going to happen. And so if you didn't believe me, sorry. Now that Project 2025 is on its way to becoming the law of the land, Dans has come to believe that Graham isn't sufficiently committed to the president's agenda. The race, he says, is a steel cage match for the future of MAGA. In one corner, there's Dans, who boasts of being one of President Trump's top fighters. Scary. And was the architect of the plan to consolidate executive power, dismantle the administrative state, and impose a conservative social agenda on the nation. In the other is Graham, a 70-year-old childless warmonger with no stake in the future of this country, and a MAGA pretender, as Dans describes him. Wow, I've never actually heard a man described as childless before. So I love the equality going on in this article. At first glance, the race seems set up to be yet another Trump-era purity test, an over-the-top loyalist taking on an over-the-hill old guard Republican, one who, just about a decade ago, urged his party to tell Trump to go to hell if it truly wanted to make America great. His act is over. It's Sunset Boulevard for him, Dans tells me. This guy does love movies. Wow. I never thought I would see the day where if I was voting in this election, would have to vote for Lindsey Graham. I mean,
For real?
over someone who architected Project 2025. Yeah, because my hope in this situation is that Lindsey Graham would just continue to be be ineffective at 70 years old and having been it so long. Whereas someone who comes in new, especially someone who just put together Project 2025, they're going to go buck wild.
What do you think is worse for this country, the war in Iraq or Project 2025?
What's even going on? Oh, you mean previously the war in Iraq?
Yeah, I'm saying in general, what's a bigger scandal? What's hurt America more? Project 2025 or...
I don't think we know the full effects of. I mean, Project 2025 just kind of got getting started. I mean, literally Friday they were voting on whether or not to undo gay marriage. That decision is still pending. We could learn as early as tomorrow, but that's what they were, talking about.
I got you. I think anyone's better than a warmonger, in my opinion.
It's hard to say. I mean, you still it's hard because it's war is terrible, obviously, pacifist, but it's also Project 2025 is undoing the actual liberties of America. So also extremely bad.
The Patriot Act?
Okay. But is it Graham received the president's coveted complete and total endorsement for his re-election campaign this spring. Lindsey has been a wonderful friend to me, Trump posted in late March, and has always been there when I needed him. Dans tells me he views Trump's endorsement as premature. Trump endorses what I stand for on a daily basis, Dan says. But a White House spokesperson told me this week that Trump stands by his Graham endorsement. And Chris LaCivita, Trump's 2024 co-campaign manager and a current senior advisor to Graham's re-election effort, has accused Dans of having parachuted into the race, telling Vanity Fair that he's attacked one of the key GOP Senate leaders responsible for passing the lion's share of President Trump's key campaign promises. Paul Dans thinks South Carolina Republicans are dopes. LaCivita adds, not only is Dans the dope, but he's the antithesis of common sense. It also could be interesting because someone like Paul Dans, Trump could see him as more of a threat to himself, whereas Lindsey Graham kind of just goes along with what Trump says. And then perhaps Paul Dans, because he is the architect of Project 2025, might try to surpass Trump or something. And he wouldn't like that. Again, just spitballing here. We don't know. But Dans is hoping that his long history of supporting the president will provide an advantage. Oh, yeah, because she's so loyal. That's one thing we know about Trump. He's so loyal. He turns on everyone eventually. He was on the Trump train long before Graham boarded, having been an advocate for Trump run in 2011 when the now president was still a punchline. God, I barely remember that. Graham, meanwhile, remains a key ally to Trump, who has conquered Capitol Hill to such a degree that it is hard to imagine what a more loyal Congress would look like. But Dan's believes the MAGA movement has yet to reach its full ascendancy, and he wants to get it there, whether he has Trump's explicit permission or not. We can't afford to have Trump flip the keys to Lindsey for the next generation, Dan tells me. Sometimes you just have to go and take the car without asking. Maybe now my vote would go to Dan's because like maybe there would be so much infighting that nothing would get done because Trump would just keep fighting with Dan's. I don't know. I would have to see a little bit more. Dan, and also I'm not voting in this election. So Dan's served in the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Office of Personnel Management in the second half of Trump's first term. He and his wife, the fitness influencer and former professional ballet dancer Mary Helen Bowers, who trained Natalie Portman for her Oscar-winning turn in 2010's Black Swan, moved the family to South Carolina about 9 years ago. This is home, Dan tells me, of his adopted home state. I wasn't born here, but we got married here, and I'll end up dying here. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Wow, he's really trying to like show South Carolina, I'm one of you. In 9 years, that's like a little bit hard. I think you need like at least 10 years to really like be like, I am part of this place. The Graham campaign, though, I mean, you know, even in New York City, I've lived here for 22 years, like since I legally could live here. I lived here since I was 17 years old, and people are still like, that's not long enough. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what was I going to do? Like, I legally could not come here. The moment I could come here, I came here, believe me. The Graham campaign, though, has cast him as an outsider, a criticism Dan's brushes off by noting the senator's own unpopularity. He is the odd character that is equally disliked by both sides of the aisle, Dan says. Indeed, Graham, who first won an election to the Senate in 2003 during a political era that seems far longer ago than some 2 decades, has performed poorly in polls, with one Palmetto State survey in May showing him with just 34% approval behind other state Republican officials and Trump himself. Another poll conducted in June suggested that nearly half of Republicans would at least be open to a primary challenger. That's also just kind of like the environment that we're in right now for both the right and the left. I think it's like, let's get new blood in here. Let's primary people. That's just kind of what's happening right now in politics, period, hard stop. One reason for this openness may be that back in 2016, Graham warned that Republicans would get destroyed and deserve it if they nominated Trump. Now, however, he's the president's groveling golf buddy. He's got a problem with the base, as Chip Feckel, a South Carolina GOP strategist and ardent Trump critic, tells me. He can't be Trumpy enough for some of these people. Nowhere was that more apparent than in Pickens, South Carolina, where Graham was booed for about 6 minutes at a 2023 Trump campaign event in his home county. The choruses of booings are only going to get louder, Dan's predicts. But Graham has proved himself largely reliable. Watch the South Carolina senator tearfully solicit donations on television for Trump's legal defense. Look at his push for a special counsel probe into former President Barack Obama, with Trump openly fantasizing about prosecuting his predecessor. Graham may still diverge on MAGA orthodoxy from time to time, particularly in his hawkish foreign policy approach, but he has been fervent in his loyalty to Trump himself. Would there be any meaningful difference in the subservience of the Senate? Were Dan's to defeat Graham in next June's primary and be elected to the Senate in the fall? Unequivocally, no, Feckel tells me. The real fight in this so-called MAGA cage match then may be over efforts to institutionalize a movement that has been, for the last 10 years, a cult of personality. Graham is the poster child for the GOP establishment's capitulation to Trump the man. Dan's is institutional MAGA, having sought in the Project 2025 plan on which he's campaigning to bake the movement's principles, such as they are, into the government. It's a MAGA product purer than what Graham is selling people, perhaps, but it's one that would seem to put him at odds with Trump, whose criticisms of Project 2025 during last year's campaign seemed to go beyond concerns about how it could be wielded against him electorally. Trump, after all, conceives of himself as the big boss, relying only on his very, very large brain, that's a quote, to make decisions, not some nerds at the Heritage Foundation. Even as Trump consolidates extraordinary power in Republican-controlled Washington, some MAGA fault lines have been emerging recently, particularly over his handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. You must take down every enemy of the people, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted late last month. If not, the base will turn and there's no going back. Dangling bits of red meat no longer satisfies. They want the whole steak dinner and will accept nothing else. Poetic, Marjorie. Dance tells me he agrees with those who are much more questioning of the administration's foreign policy interventions, Mike, and regards the failure to produce all files related to Epstein as a major misplay by people in this administration. When I ask why he thinks the White House hasn't been more forthcoming about Epstein, whose long, well-documented relationship with Trump has been under renewed scrutiny in recent weeks, Dan's replies, they have a lot going on. I don't know. I couldn't speculate. There is one area where Dan's would suggest Trump has erred. In his endorsement of Graham, he's not infallible, Dan says of the president, although he thinks he would have been a very interesting pope. Jesus. Okay. All right. So that's just a little peek into what's happening. Again, just like I think a lot of change in, these sitting positions, these names and faces that we've known for so long. I think a lot of them are going to start getting challenged. And, as much as Zoran Mamdani's win has affected Democrats, don't think it's not going to affect Republicans, and not just negatively, not just them saying crazy fucking racist stuff about 9/11 and terrorism. I think it's also that they're going to see that and go, man, we need to get some young, fresh blood into our party as well. Who is the next Charlie Kirk, and is that person going to run for office? Again, would not be surprised if we hear Erica Kirk is running for something, although she's probably too busy with Turning Point, but we don't know. I just wouldn't be surprised at anything at this point. All right, let's go into the enemy of the state right now. Bam, bam, bam. And that is going to go just this week. I feel like it has to go to our own president, Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
The state.
Nice, beautiful. Okay. So in the past, a week ago, Donald Trump was on 60 Minutes, and I was so overwhelmed by all the things happening in municipal politics locally here in New York City and all the amazing wins all over the country for Democrats that I missed what Mike calls a really incredible interview, in a bad way. You said you watched most of it live and you had to leave the room multiple times to laugh because the person you were watching with was into it, correct?
So into it.
Alarming. Okay, so I got one of those, top 5 moments articles just to kind of help summarize it for us. Because I doubt any of us really want to sit down and watch a full 60 Minutes interview with Donald Trump, although I guess if you can stomach it as a comedic piece or, some kind of ironic work, maybe you would. But, I do think it's important that we look at, what the president of the United States is saying when he is left to his own devices. So this is from Yahoo News, 5 wildest moments you didn't see during Trump's 60 Minutes interview. And this is Mediaite. It's picked up by Yahoo News, though. All right, so if you only caught 60 Minutes on live TV this weekend, you may have missed some of the most volatile parts of President Donald Trump's sit-down with the journalist Norah O'Donnell. CBS posted a longer version online late Sunday, and the extended cut, this is the director's edit, captured the president in his more natural register, a more revealing portrait that cut back across repeated grievances and jibes. And that's interesting. I mean, I'm glad they aired it, but it's like, oh, did they cleaned it up for the live TV? I mean, obviously they had to edit for, time, but below are 5 of the most striking moments that were relegated to the web and didn't make it to the air. So you might not even know some of these, Mike. So number one is Trump dunks on 60 Minutes' $16 million Harris interview settlement. The president gloated that 60 Minutes paid me a lot of money. He insisted Paramount was forced to pay me a lot of money, accusing CBS of having deceptively edited its Kamala Harris interview nearly 13 months ago. At the time, he said it amounted to election interference, but CBS denied wrongdoing. The moment began with Trump mocking Harris as someone who could not speak and was not a very intelligent person, before abruptly pivoting to boast about the lawsuit gleefully. And now these are quotes. President Donald Trump: they replaced former President Joe Biden with somebody. The press got behind her. Oh, they were so behind her. But eventually she failed because she couldn't speak. She wasn't a very intelligent person, in my opinion, but she couldn't speak properly. She could not speak. Just a little note from me, someone who speaks professionally for a living. If you are going to, say that someone is not good at speaking, while you're saying that, you should probably say it in a more polished manner, like not redundant, not pieces of sentences. He goes on to say, and actually 60 Minutes paid me a lot of money, but 60 Minutes was forced to pay me a lot of money because they took her answer out. That was so bad. It was election changing 2 nights before the election. And they put a new answer in and they paid me a lot of money for that. You can't have fake news. All right. Number 2, Trump raves about Barry Weiss. Oof, that's not good for Barry Weiss. As he spoke about the lawsuit.
Oh, that's your girl.
She's not my girl. She's not my girl. Free Press, when it started, was doing extremely interesting pieces that I really, really liked. As the years have gone on, they've gotten oddly conservative, but that's also happened. That's an effect of the entire conversation about politics becoming Israel versus Gaza, and there's nothing else that you can talk about, and everything somehow goes back to that. And it's becomes crazy, and it's made formerly, like-minded or at least kind of progressive Jewish people become crazy conservatives. And I hate seeing that. Again, I think Jewish people in New York were split into either these crazy, I used to be a Democrat, but now I'm a MAGA person Jews, or the other half of it is what I call liberal MAGA, which is so far left that it doesn't even really make sense for such a perspective to exist in capitalism. So those are the 2 choices that you have. Let's see. Trump raves about Barry Weiss. As he spoke about the lawsuit settlement, Trump sidestepped to hail CBS's new leadership as great, saying, "I think you have a great new leader, frankly." He predicted a new era for the press under Barry Weiss's new editorial strategy. President Donald Trump, quote, "You don't have to put this on because I don't want to embarrass you, and I'm sure you're not. I think you have a great new leader, frankly, who's the young woman that's leading your whole enterprise is great from what I know. I don't know her, but I hear she's a great person." Oh, wow. That was really helpful. Thank you. 3, Trump threatens to walk out over crypto billionaire pardon question. This one's very important. Mike is very invested in this. Pressed on why he pardoned crypto billionaire Changpeng Zhao, known as CZ, he snapped. Insisted he didn't know who CZ was. He literally does business with the guy. He knows who he is. This is like me, someone asking me about my ex-boyfriend and me saying, I don't know who that is. What are we talking about right now? And warns he could leave the set, then lectured O'Donnell over her question. He says, "I could have walked away. I didn't have to answer that question." Nora O'Donnell goes on to say, okay, allowing U.S. terrorist groups to, essentially move millions of dollars around. He pled guilty to anti-money laundering laws. That was in 2023. Then in 2025, his crypto exchange, Binance, helped facilitate a $2 billion purchase of World Liberty Financial's stablecoin. And then you pardon CZ. How do you address the appearance of pay for play? President Trump says, well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other. She cuts him off. She says, but he got a pardon. Trump says, I can only tell you that. O'Donnell says, he got a pardon. Trump says, Nora, I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good. You know, they're running a business. They're not in government and they're good. My one son is a #1 bestseller now. I'm just going all over the fucking page. My wife just had a #1 bestseller. I'm proud of them for doing that. I'm focused on this. I know nothing about the guy other than that I hear he was a victim of weaponization by government. When you say the government, you're talking about the Biden government. Okay? Always blame it on Biden. That's a good tactic. He goes on to say it's a corrupt government. Biden was the most corrupt president, and he was the worst president we've ever had. I'm just going to say right now, he definitely was not the most corrupt president. What are we talking? I think we know who was. Will we be #1 in crypto? Crypto has turned out, and in that sense, I've been right. Crypto's turned out to be a massive industry, if you want to call it that. And I'm very proud to say that we are far and away ahead of China and everybody else. Now China is getting into it very big. If you want to go after people, you're going to kill that industry and it'll be very bad. Tremendous number of jobs. I campaigned positively on crypto very openly. Biden campaigned against it. When Biden found out that I was getting like 100% of the crypto vote, which was a lot, he switched totally and he went in favor of crypto. They were totally in favor. They had many people under indictment. They let them go. They let them all go. You know that. Many people were under indictment. Biden was a corrupt president. Biden went all in on crypto at the very end because he thought he could get some votes. And this is interesting because when you read somebody else's words, like just off the page, and it doesn't have like their personality and their cadence on it, you can really see how much of like Trump being able to sell things is because of who he is and how these nonsensical words come out of his mouth. Because like this on the page is like gobbledygook. This like if you got a book and it had these words in this arranged in this way, you would be like, did someone have a stroke while writing this book? Trump goes on to say it didn't work. They voted for me. I want to make crypto great for America. That's the only thing. I don't want to have somebody else have crypto and have China be #1 in the world in crypto. Because in crypto, it's a kind of an industry where basically you're going to have #1 and you're not going to have a #2. Again, just like with every sentence, just reminding myself why I felt so comfortable running for mayor. And right now we're #1 by a long shot. I want to keep it that way. The same way we're #1 with AI, we're #1 with crypto, and I want to keep it that way. Okay. O'Donnell finally says, so not concerned about the appearance of corruption with this. Trump says, I can't say because I can't say I'm not concerned. I'd rather not have you ask the questions, but I let you ask it. You just came to me and said, can I ask another question? And I said, yeah, this is the question. O'Donnell says, and you answered. Trump says, I don't mind. Did I let you do it? I could have walked away. I didn't have to answer this question. I'm proud to answer the question. You know why? We've taken crypto. O'Donnell says, but just generally speaking, Trump says, excuse me, we're #1 in crypto in the whole world. Other people want to be. They're fighting like hell to be, but we're #1 in crypto because I'm the president. Biden wanted to also at the very end, he totally switched his thing. Like, is this even true? Are we #1 in crypto? What does that even mean? Like we're making the most money off of crypto in America? Like, how do you even, is the U.S. #1 in crypto? The most important thing is to really fact check literally anything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, I would say. That is the #1 thing. Like, what is that? Yep. Okay. What do we know? It's not even true. No, the United States is not ranked #1 in global crypto adoption, according to recent data. It is very strong, but other countries currently lead. And so right now, according to the 2025 Chain Analysis Global Crypto Adoption Index, the U.S. is ranked #2 in crypto overall after India. The U.S. leads in many metrics, particularly by volume of transactions and institutional activity. For instance, one report says the U.S. is the largest crypto market globally in absolute terms measured by transaction volume. However, when you measure adoption in terms of percentage of population or grassroots usage, small retail transactions peer-to-peer. Several other countries rank higher. All right, so so India's technically number one. I guess his lie in this case, and this is so bad that this is like how we're measuring it now, is not that bad, because in some specific, parts of crypto, we are number one, and we're certainly strong, but no, we are not number one technically.
No, but it's the same bloviation as always. It's he's now made more money in crypto than maybe any human being ever has. So for him,
he is America.
I am America.
Right.
When I'm doing the best, we're all doing the best, because you guys all work for me. Have you not figured that out yet?
And also with data and polls and stuff like that, I mean, I figure you can always, usually they're not all like ranking the same person number one. Like even when we do like education ranking, like this year, like New Jersey was number one on one, but number three on another. So again, not the craziest, misinformation the president has ever spread. Not a great, that was what the bar is set at. But again, I just always like to definitely, out of all the fact checking that we're doing, the number one fact check I'm doing is anything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth. Because he just so confidently and repeats facts that are untrue. And there is a certain point when you hear something so many times, it like becomes true in your mind, even if it is not true. So that's why it's so important to, like, when you hear something, like, immediately look it up before even sharing it, because otherwise you're gonna start remembering lies, and it's confusing, and it happens to all of us for sure. Number 4, Trump re-ups his rigged 2020 election claims again and again. Several times throughout the interview, the president pushed his repeated claims that the 2020 presidential election was rigged against him, using the word 6 times, and insisted that voters in the U.S. don't ever want that to happen again. Asked about whether he would run again in 2028, Trump pointed to a strong bench of MAGA Republican potential candidates before warning that the rigged 2020 election was a lesson. Oh, it's always good when the president threatens its own people. Trump says, or his own people, Trump says, "I like so many people. We have an unbelievable bench. We could run 2 people together." Okay. As duo presidents, or does he mean 2 different MAGA candidates who would both be strong?
No, I mean like JD with Rubio in the VP slot.
Oh, okay. I thought he was trying to offer co-president. I never know with this guy.
I can't pick which one of my sons would make the best president, so they're both going to be president.
Honestly, yes. We have a great bench, so I don't want to start talking about elections. It's too early. One thing I can tell you, the 2020 election was rigged, and a lot of people say when it's rigged, you're allowed to do it again. So again, he is setting the stage for him making up a reason why he can run again. It's going to happen. We knew it was going to happen before, as soon as he was elected for the second term. I think if, anyone has really been watching. And it just
He said the words during a campaign speech, "Go out and vote this time. You'll never have to vote again."
Oh, yeah.
That's an actual quote from him.
You know what? Some of these things I did block in my memory, but yeah. Yeah, interesting. And again, with the Steve Bannon, with the weird interview you had with Jackson Lawmeyer, again, weird fucking shit going on. All right. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So that's a quote from our president. A lot of people say when it's rigged, you're allowed to do it again. It was rigged and it's been caught, and you see the same information that everybody else does, and it's coming out now in spades. But with all of that, we have a great bench. When O'Donnell quizzed the president on his border policies, his strikes on alleged drug trafficking vessels, and rising tensions with Venezuela, the president blamed the state of the world on the outcome of the 2024 race. Trump says, "I go to Japan, I go to South Korea, I go to China, any place I go, and you know what I call that? Respect for our country." They didn't treat Biden that way. When Biden went there, first of all, he hardly went anywhere. Guy couldn't leave his bedroom. He's doing a little stand-up here. But they didn't treat Biden that way. They had no respect for Biden, falling up the stairs, going to an airplane 3 times. I mean, President Trump fell asleep during a meeting in the White House, in the Oval Office this week. It's on camera. They had no respect for Biden falling up the stairs, going to an airplane 3 times. I mean, this is a man who should have never been president. This was a rigged election. And we have to get back to the bottom of that also, because we don't want to have want that to ever happen again. You see what's going on. We don't ever want that to happen again. Look what happened to our country by having Biden as the president. Like, honestly, I don't think Trump could actually be this bad of a speaker. I think he's using this as a tactic to speak in a manner that is like confusing. And this is a tactic that like people use.
He's an 80-something-year-old man.
I hear you.
Sitting down in a hostile interview.
I hear you. But this is, this isn't hostile. To me, the interviewer is like doing her job. She's bringing him back. He's trying to go all over the map with his words, and she's bringing him back concisely. She's not saying you're a jerk. She's saying she just reiterates the question, which is
hostile compared to his daughter interviewing him on Fox News, which is the type of press he's used to doing.
So you mean it's a fair interview?
Sure. Regardless, I'm saying this is an interviewer who's giving him even a tiny modicum of pushback at 79 years old, while he's clearly stealing from the country in full view of everyone.
Yeah. And when the interviewer tried to pull him onto questions around resolving the Russia-Ukraine war, he repeated the same claim again. Trump, quote, "But Nora, that was Joe Biden's war, not my war." He's like, "No, my brother did it. I didn't steal the cookie. I inherited that stupid war. That should not have been a war. That would have never happened if I were president. And by the way, for 4 years, it didn't happen. There was never even a doubt. Then the election was rigged and stolen, and all of a sudden, you see them forming up at the line." 5, Trump swerves from political violence to shut down politics. Asked about campaign trail assassination attempts on his life, as well as the assassinations of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman, Trump insisted violence was primarily on the left before he veered into a government funding monologue saying, "I think they have to approve the shutdown, so it's not shut down." Nora O'Donnell says, "The issue of political violence I want to get to because you were nearly assassinated in Butler, Pennsylvania. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's house was firebombed. Minnesota lawmaker murdered. What's your message to those on the left and the right who would seek to commit acts of violence?" President Donald Trump says, "Well, I think primarily on the left, a little bit of both, but I think primarily on the left." And again, we've looked into this on this show. Not true. I think they have to tone it down. I think they have to approve the shutdown so it's not shut down. I think it's very bad what they're doing. They're hurting people. You know, if you think about it, if people aren't going to get paid, they're going to be, a lot of angry people out there. They want to get their food. They want to get their money so they can live. In some cases, whatever they want to get, they want to get. Well, oh, great sentence. Trump 2028, whatever they want to get, they want to get. That's really good. I think by the Democrats not giving us the votes, I think it endangers both parties. I think it's very bad. There's never been a case like this. This is fairly standard stuff. You do auto extensions are almost automatic. What does this even mean? In fact, they were virtually automatic. This is the only time they don't want to do the extension because they're losing so badly that they said, maybe we have some leverage. One of the senators said that maybe this is the first time we have some leverage. O'Donnell says, I wonder if where Trump cuts her off and says, but they really don't have the leverage because O'Donnell says, I wonder if we're at a breaking point. Trump says the Republicans can't be extorted in order to ruin our country. O'Donnell says, do you feel like we're at a breaking point given everything that you just said? Trump says, no, it's been much worse. O'Donnell says, because you... And then Trump says, I mean, over history? O'Donnell says, well, Trump says it's been much worse. O'Donnell says, sure, but the political violence that, we just outlined, the number of members of people in public that have been targeted, Trump says, well, that's a different question. Okay, so if you want us the whole thing, and I doubt you really do, you can go ahead and do that. But that was just, a little taste of our amazing president, Donald J. Trump, everybody. What a guy. We love him. All right. So shout out to my Patreon subscribers. All hail to the dictator, Christopher Fungi. Thank you so much for helping to fund this show. If you are watching at home and you have some extra money, you want to give me a holiday gift, you want to give me a bump going into the holiday season, your donations keep this show going. Thank you so much to everyone who is a Patreon subscriber. And you get an additional video news story every single week with something that, is not talked about on the show. Super fun. Shout out to my capitalist pigs and my cuties. You can help be a part of this show for as little as $6 a month. And I really appreciate it. It's patreon.com/withoutacountry. If you are interested, again, sometimes people ask like, oh, can I send you something or whatever? Like, no, you can't. I don't have an Amazon wish list. I'm not that kind of an influencer. That's not my vibe at all. That being said, the best way to support me is to, for free, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the show on YouTube. And if you have a couple bucks to spare, certainly becoming a Patreon of this show is super helpful. And it pays for all the things that we do for this show, for the subscriptions, for Mike and everyone who works on this show, and Crystal. All right, moving on to Tucker Carlson drama. There's been like a lot of stuff going on, and we were so into the elections this week, but I think like there's a lot of like foundational things going on in government right now, and going into infighting, and Democrats are on the rise. There's maybe some infighting on the right, and it's very interesting. And these are the kinds of things that we want to be tracking and seeing, like, who do we think we can trust? Who do we think we can't trust? Who's the best option? Who you're voting for? Who do you need to go out in your locally and canvass for or against, So this is, we're starting the Tucker Carlson drama, which I had to read up on myself today, because I wasn't even fully aware of everything. Mike, you've been aware of this?
Oh, I've been on the front lines.
Mm-hmm. I was like, I feel like this is like more your side of the algorithm. And again, I follow a lot of stuff, but some like right now, it's like because of the mayoral race, my algorithm is so Zoran that I feel like I need to recalibrate it so I'm getting like a better perspective of the rest of the world. Obviously, I'm looking through like every single major news source every week as well. But again, like, that's a lot about the government shutdown right now. So I wanted to get to these kind of other stories, because the government shutdown, like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, not really a ton to report every week, except for like all the benefits you're losing and your flight possibly getting canceled. But again, hopefully that will be alleviated this week. Hopefully today. So this is from the New York Times from November 6th, so just a few days ago. And this is anti-Semitism task force severs ties with the Heritage Foundation. Again, this is from the New York Times. The move comes as the venerable conservative think tank is roiled by turmoil caused by its leader's defense of a Tucker Carlson interview with a white nationalist. This is by Kenneth P. Vogel. A task force dedicated to fighting anti-Semitism is leaving the Heritage Foundation as the conservative think tank grapples with the fallout from its president's defense of a Tucker Carlson podcast interview with a prominent white nationalist. In an email obtained by the New York Times, 4 leaders of the National Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism wrote on Thursday that it was important for us to continue the work of the NTFCA outside the Heritage Foundation for a season. The Heritage Foundation, a pillar of the conservative movement for decades, had helped create and support the task force after the October 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel and the Israeli army's subsequent destruction of Gaza. The group was founded to address anti-Semitism on the American political left. But the foundation emerged last week, and this is like, again, very interesting because, again, like the right, not historically like amazingly pro-Jew, but they also kind of, in a way saw an opportunity and seized it, which was they saw the left kind of turning or being comfortable speaking badly about Jews. And they were like, all right, well, like, let's, create a group on the right and get maybe the Jews on our side. And it really worked, and it's terrifying to watch. It is so bothersome to me how many Jewish people became like hardcore conservatives in the past couple of years. Because like, just like socially and like it's not, I mean, if you're like a conservative, if like religiously you're like super Jewish, yeah, it makes sense for you to vote conservatively, as is the case for most. If you're the like highest level of kind of any religion, usually you're gonna vote more conservative. That makes sense. That aligns, right? But for more laid back casual Jews, of which there are a lot of us, we are by nature liberal people. And so this is like really, it's been really just like bothersome for me to watch this, breaking my damn heart, to be honest. But the foundation emerged last week in the center of a fierce debate about anti-Semitism in right-wing politics after its president, Kevin Roberts, challenged the criticism of a mostly friendly interview Mr. Carlson conducted on his popular streaming show with Nick Fuentes, an avowedly racist anti-Semite with a large following. Tell us how you really feel, New York Times. The task force's departure underscored a deepening rift on the right between conservatives who have long embraced Israel and supporters of President Trump who oppose U.S. support for the country, seeing it as an anathema to his America First ideology. The tension is playing out at the Heritage Foundation, which has worked to meld its traditional conservatism with populist elements of Mr. Trump's agenda. In a video posted to social media last Thursday, Mr. Roberts said that conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington. He described Mr. Carlson as a close friend of the Heritage Foundation and said that the venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. The video drew condemnation from across the political spectrum, with critics accusing Mr. Roberts of perpetuating anti-Semitic tropes. It also prompted indignation at the foundation. At least 5 members of the task force reportedly resigned, and some think tank staff members expressed outrage. Mr. Roberts apologized on Wednesday in a video and at a staff meeting where he said that he was willing to resign, but that he wanted a chance to repair the damage, according to a video obtained and published by the Washington Free Beacon, a conservative news site. While the task force leaders indicated in their email that they were encouraged by the efforts to address the controversy, they wrote that the episode exposed a serious problem within the conservative movement. The email was reported earlier by Jewish Insider. In an interview, Luke Moon, one of the task force's co-founders, said its initial focus was anti-Semitism largely on the left with college campuses and on the streets. Mr. Moon, a pastor and the executive director of the Philos Project, a nonprofit group devoted to rallying support for Israel among Christians, said that after President Trump took office again in January, there were groups within the right that have become very aggressively anti-Semitic, and I don't appreciate that. He added that there are millions of Christians and Jews who love America and love Israel. We're not part of some grand venomous coalition trying to wreck MAGA. We're part of the tent. The task force includes more than 100 conservative groups, Mr. Moon said, though a number of them severed ties after Mr. Roberts' defense of Mr. Carlson. The task force will now be housed inside of the Conference of Christian Presidents for Israel. Jesus, a coalition that includes the leaders of Christian advocacy groups, Mr. Moon said. There are so many crazy advocacy groups and you're like, what? I didn't even know this many groups existed. Cody Sargent, a Heritage Foundation spokesman, declined to comment on the task force's move. In an email, he pointed to Mr. Roberts' apology video and a social media post in which Mr. Roberts had disavowed Mr. Fuentes' vicious anti-Semitic ideology. Mr. Sargent wrote that our posture on the need to fight anti-Semitism is very clear. The other task force leaders who, now it's interesting because like we're kind of getting like into anti-Semitism, almost the same thing that happened with trans people, right? Jews are a very small group of people, right? And somehow we're now making it into the largest thing, which is exactly the mistake that people made with trans people. And again, just like trans people, it's not that Jews do not need protections, but I honestly feel like now we're talking about it way too much, and it's actually endangering Jewish people more than if we just like kind of stop talking about it. This is my thing. And again, I had the same exact stance on trans stuff. I was like, I understand that we need to protect this group of people, but I truly, truly, truly believe the more we talk about both these groups of people, the more endangered they get and the more disliked they get. I just think at a certain point, you just got to just stop talking about it. And then people would stop trying to like pass like legislation. And there is, still hateful legislation trying to be passed against trans people, which we would get to later in this episode.
Well, but it's also the like, if you are to, the overstep of painting someone as the transphobic brush is the same thing with, like, if you were to question whether or not, let's say, a 6-year-old should begin, hormone therapy.
I know.
You would 5 years ago have been considered a violent a transphobic monster. And now it's a thing where it's like, were people really just rubber stamping this a few years back? So it's like that same thing is happening with anti-Semitism, where if you were to say, I think, this guy's ideas should be heard and evaluated on their merit versus, just reflexively shutting someone down, then I am a violent anti-Semite for saying that. Yeah, and it's like you're overplaying your hand is my point.
Right. Yeah. No, I see that, and I agree. I mean, I have the same issue with with the trans movement, where it's like, yeah, literally, as a cis woman, any time you try to even bring up any like valid points or just like calmly discuss something, it's just people yelling TERF in your face, and you go, okay, well, very hard to have a conversation right now if you're just gonna yell TERF, It's like, okay, TERF became okay boomer, and you're like, okay, you can't just like say like a catch line like you're an 80s stand-up comic, and then, it's just like, yeah, it's like hamburger. I'm just like, hamburger? Like what? Just like what?
So I said she's a TERF.
Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah, I mean, basically, and you're like, okay, this is good. Let's see. The other task force leaders who signed the email separating from Heritage were Mario Bramick, a Florida pastor who leads a group called the Latino Coalition for Israel, Victoria Coates, who served as a deputy national security advisor in the first Trump White House, and Eli Kohanim, who served as deputy special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism in the first Trump administration. In the email, they announced that the task force would help host a conference in Washington this month with the Conference of Christian Presidents for Israel, an event they said would expose and counter extremism and anti-Semitism on the right. We cannot allow the conservative movement to be corrupted and destroyed by those consumed with attacking America's Judeo-Christian heritage and values, thereby distracting us all from the real challenges facing our nation, the email read. All right. Dear God, what is happening? I also just like, because we haven't really discussed Nick Fuentes in a long time, and not that I actually wanted to, but I did find I think when people, you can't just ignore people who have large followings. It's just like not really an option. It's not smart. Know thy enemy, right? And so I found, from yesterday, a little commentary piece. I guess, this is kind of the Rolling Stones version of an op-ed. I guess they're calling it commentary, but a little piece on Nick Fuentes and why many people find him so appealing, especially young men. Again, we know that this is something that we cannot not talk about. Young men are, going to the right in droves. And a lot of it is because they're watching these really, really popular streamers like Nick Fuentes. And as people talk about a lot, the Democrats don't do a great job of inviting especially young men, especially young white men, I would say, straight young white men, to the table. And when you don't do that, you're going to lose them. So here is why do the same way Republicans, lose women or don't gain women. Why do so many young men like Nick Fuentes? This is by Eli Thompson. From Rolling Stone, after the far right pundit went on Tucker Carlson's podcast, his star has been rising at my conservative college. I wanted to know why. And I like this article because it's a very, or this little piece, because it's just very like, feet on the ground. It's like, these are the people. I am young. I am at a conservative college. I see this happening in real time. I like that kind of reporting. I think it's super helpful. In late October, former Fox News host Tucker Carlson posted a YouTube interview with Nick Fuentes, a popular white nationalist and openly anti-Semitic pundit. At first, I didn't want to watch it. I thought Nick Fuentes didn't deserve that big of a platform and that his views were abhorrent. Well, which is funny. I mean, Nick Fuentes, he doesn't deserve that big of a platform. He has that big of a platform already. It's just like more with his people. So I guess you're saying like exposing him to a more mainstream audience. But I began hearing friends talk about it on the campus of the conservative college that I attend, and many were praising the two, so I decided to watch. From Fuentes praising Stalin to calling for an exclusive pro-white Christian movement, the podcast was the clown show I was expecting. But when I heard Fuentes decry that, quote, organized Jewry had too much influence, I couldn't watch anymore. I had to turn it off. I got to be honest, that's when you got to keep watching. Being a young Jew at a Baptist college, weird choice for you, it worried me. Would this rhetoric spread and become mainstream among many of my peers? But the podcast also shocked me. Growing up, I never expected a major political pundit to get away with making openly anti-Semitic remarks. Oh, that's actually very in vogue right now. It'll win you votes. Again, I'm not saying it's good, but I am saying if you want to win. But here he was, and all it seemed to do was attract more young fans. Bam! Did they like him because they liked his edginess, or did they actually agree with him? I had known about Tucker Carlson for a long time, but Fuentes was different. For me, one of his clips came up in a group chat once sophomore year of high school, and I, as well as many of my peers, saw him as an outcast. He was like the Tate brothers. He definitely had fans, but for many, he was too crazy, too extreme to be taken seriously. That's no longer the case. In the past year, I've seen him gain fame among my peers. It started with him becoming a feature in many of our Instagram feeds, to him being all over our group chats and debates. Now you can't miss him. He's gone from being a pariah to mainstream. For many kids my age, the party of Trump and Vance can now be looked at as the party of Trump, Vance, and Fuentes. He might not hold elected office, but his massive online following and interviews with podcasters Bradley Martin and Patrick Bet-David, he has been given a sense of legitimacy that has pulled him into the mainstream. My peers love that Fuentes isn't politically correct. He makes many points, like on Israel, they agree with, but even when he makes comments they see as fringe, it boosts his popularity because he's edgy and willing to say whatever comes to his mind. Someone will say they like Fuentes because he, quote, tells the truth about Israel, referring to his statements that Israel holds too much influence over American foreign policy. I mean, I would agree with that. When I or someone else mentions his praise for Hitler, they don't get shocked. Obviously, he's joking because he wants to get reactions from people. Like, this is the problem. This is how we've weaponized jokes. One classmate told me, my peers aren't Nazis, but they're too easy to dismiss hurtful statements as just humor. They agree. It's beyond hurtful. I would say it's dangerous. They agree with him on many of his main points, but they also like him when he does say radical things. He's edgy, willing to say anything, and not politically correct. That has become his perfect recipe to get young male fans. I feel like more and more we are expected to take these comments in stride. Before, comments like this were crazy or crude jokes, but now it seems like it's normal and appropriate. Before, a joke about Jews controlling the world would empty the room. Now it's background noise. Now it gets applause. It's literally just jokes, someone recently told me. People get so dramatic and sensitive about some of this. The bar for edgy keeps dropping and the bar for outrage keeps rising. If you call it anti-Semitic, you're the snowflake. Not every kid in my school is a white nationalist. Well, that's good. Not even the ones who make some of the jokes. Most just want to fit in and to show they've rejected woke culture. But then there becomes a permission structure. If you laugh at the joke and share the clip, then it starts to become an actual belief and not a dumb joke. In a campus culture that prides itself on being bold and contrarian, too many young men see cruelty as courage. But if nothing changes, the future of conservative politics will see much of the anti-Semitic rhetoric as a badge of intellectual honesty. The adults in the room still have time to intervene, but every second they hesitate, it will allow more students to think it's okay. There is no debate about anti-Semitism and no casual way to flirt with hate and pretend it's humor. My generation deserves better leaders than the ones teaching us that bigotry is bravery and hate is just a joke. My peers need to grow up, but a major elected leader like the president or vice president could lead them in the right direction and to show that Fuentes isn't mainstream. I mean, but you're always, the thing is, like, you know, J.D. Vance is, I guess, young enough, but President Trump at a certain point is going to like be age out of being able to influence young men. And at the end of the day, I think they're always going to, listen more to like the cool, streamer guy, the young guy, the guy on, YouTube or whatever. I'm sure I'm guessing Nick Fuentes has been kicked off YouTube. Is he back? Where does he stream from?
I have no idea.
His own thing?
I'm going to push back on the Trump thing because, I mean, this guy has literally been referenced in rap songs since the early 90s. Like since
the early 90s, but I'm saying now eventually I think he will age
Mac
out.
Miller was writing songs about it. I mean, the guy's 80 years old and he's got, we were just talking about the young people for MAGA conservative party. It's like, I mean, I guess he ages out when he's like, in a fucking diaper in a nursing home.
Which
but
I think is kind of close.
80.
I think it's kind of close to that, based on his behavior as of late, based on the dementia tests that they did that he didn't know.
Fair enough. Is there more to this article? Because I do have a rebuttal.
Yeah, go ahead. It's just an op-ed, and again, like it's also like focusing on anti-Semitism, which is like I think if we presented these things and talked about the almost equal rise in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, it would actually strengthen both causes. Because I looked up the numbers, because one side is saying no, everyone's Islamophobic, and one side is saying no, everyone's anti-Semitic, and I did a lot of research on this, and they've risen about equally. So both are true. And why are we fighting? And this is causing a problem for everybody. Yes, Michael, your mic's off.
The thing that I find very frustrating about the coverage of this interview is like there was a moment where Tucker like straight up like calls him to the carpet and he's like, hey, you're claiming you're, this Christian nationalist, but collectivism has always been a very anti-Christian value. Like, according to Tucker, it's other world religions that, will look at people as a collective versus Christians who have always been, judged based on the merit of the person and their actions and the way that they live. And Fuentes gave absolutely no pushback. And he went, yeah, of course. Obviously, I don't hate all Jewish people. I'm friends with Jewish people. I'm saying the Jewry at large in as like a salacious way of saying the Israeli influence in our politics and the fact that Israel is a third rail that as soon as you touch it, you are labeled and branded as an anti-Semitic person. And then for the reaction to Tucker the very next day to be what it was, you kind of prove the kid's point. And nobody's talking about that in these op-eds that you're reading.
Right. I think, but the problem is, like, again, I understand he wants to be salacious, but again, like, you have to then make a salacious word about Israeli people. Like, Israel and Jewish people are that's the problem, that it needs to be separated. And I know people are.
Why, when the criticism isn't? Like, if you criticize Israel, you are labeled as an anti-Semitic person. So,
because they have become so they're intertwined, and but that's things like that these special interest groups are doing that is actually hurting Jewish people, which people like, the Hannah Einbinder, for example, that's like a kind of like, I don't like to reference like a TV star, kind of a weak example, but that's like people like Hannah Einbinder have been pointed out, and a lot of people in Jewish actors and advocates and activists have pointed out. It's like, that's the problem. And yes, a lot of these Jewish advocacy groups are doing things to hurt Jews, because they are calling stuff that is anti-Israel anti-Semitic, and that is not true. But then that creates space for people who are criticizing Israel to then actually say things that are anti-Semitic, and it just creates a whole mess. But both sides are causing a problem for Jewish people, for sure. But I mean, like, yeah, it's like President Trump. Like, every time, every now and then he'll make a good point, but he'll say it in such a fucking crazy way. Like saying Jewry. It's like, well, if you want people to actually listen to you, besides 22-year-old guys, maybe don't say Jewry, and that would be helpful.
Sure, but I think the
but you also get less press coverage then, because we love clickbait.
Exactly, and I think the thing that makes that kind of shifted the paradigm with Trump, like your thing,
sure,
has been, even when he does make a good point, the language that he's using is so abhorrent,
sure,
and get your back up, and it's like, for a certain collective of young men, they see people like you get your hackles up because of the word choice that he used, not necessarily the content of his words. And that will like immediately shift them into like, well, clearly this guy's doing the right thing, because the worst that they can levy at him is syntax. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And
sure.
It's like, well, you've lost the argument at that point. Then if you're gonna get so lost in the woods about the words that are being used to miss the content and the points that are being made behind it, that's just going to send the radicalized young men further down that path and away from common sense, middle of the road discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, and that was discussed on, this show. There was, many times when like we tried on this show to actually get to what the Trump was saying. Again, I talk about it all the time, but his xenophobia during COVID, like, it's like, yeah, no, technically he was like right. We should have, shut it all down, shut down all that transportation. But, then he had to just like be using crazy Asian slurs nonstop. So a little hard. People get a little distracted. But, that is a big part of being a great politician, is being a great speaker. So it's not a crazy ask to ask Donald Trump to be a great speaker. It needs to be motivational, someone who makes you want to get out and do something. Like, that's like 50% of being these high level politicians. Being effective is being just like a fucking great speaker. All right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, I have to put this archive one in here. My God. All right. Speaking of infighting, again, a lot of interesting. Last week we covered a lot of the Democrats' side of things. This week we're kind of covering a lot of the Republican side of things. This is a Hill article. Okay, that apparently is not here anymore. It was removed within the past 2 hours. Oh, boy. That's crazy. I wonder why the hell they took it down. What? Wait. Sorry. Now I got to look why they get it. It was a talking about how the Republicans had to lower the cost of healthcare. Otherwise, they were going to get screwed in the midterms. Republicans, healthcare. That's interesting. I wonder why they would have taken that down. Okay, well, I don't know. It's nothing I did wrong. They took the article down in the past 2 hours. So now that's fishy. Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. There was probably some call from a health insurance company that said, "Chill, dog."
Yeah, I mean, it was a conversation in the House where, or I don't even remember which Republican it was, but a Republican in the House said, to summarize, they were like, "Yo, the cost of healthcare is crippling Americans, and if we want to do well in the midterms, we absolutely need to fix that right now." There you go. I summarized it for you. It doesn't really matter who said it, just the fact that it was said, and there was an article written about it that now has mysteriously been taken down. So, okay.
Do you really think that healthcare is the number one issue?
No. And I thought that was interesting that that's what they thought. I do not. I think it's cost of living, but I think there are actually things that, people are down bad so much that it's, I think it's cost of housing and cost of day-to-day essentials like food are the number one things.
Speaking of which, we were talking before the show about going back and forth about big news. Did you see the thing that Trump posted last night?
No, I mean, where am I following him? I'm not on Truth Social.
I'm not following him anywhere, but it just ends up in my feed. He talked yesterday.
This is why I need you on the show. I stand by this, because I think you are just like such an example of like a regular American who's like right leaning, but kind of also in the middle, sometimes libertarian. I just like think it's very important and it just shows like how, there was just, and again, like, this is what I wanted to mention before, like when Charlie Kirk got assassinated, the amount of people, on the left who were like, I didn't even know who this guy was. And they were saying that as a flex. I'm like, you are just outing yourself as someone who lives in a left bubble. You should know who Charlie Kirk is. And if you didn't know who Charlie Kirk is, that should be an alarm for you that you only read news that you agree with. I very much knew who Charlie Kirk was. Okay, go ahead.
So he came out last night and talked about the extending the mortgage window.
Okay.
So he said, FDR was a great president because he started the ball rolling on the 30-year mortgage, and Trump wants to be the guy who gets the ball rolling on the 50-year mortgage.
Okay.
And with these new 50-year mortgages, more young people will be able to own homes.
Okay, so this is good news.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you think about it like this. You get out of college at 21, 22 years old. If you were to buy a house immediately, because these new 50-year mortgages are so cheap, you then would have it paid off 7 years after Social Security kicks in. It feels like what we're doing is instead of it sounds like he's creating generational debt.
Right. I mean, but you don't have debt. You don't have debt if someone dies and there's still mortgage to be paid off. You pay it back and you get like what was.
Yeah, you get the asset, but you're still on the hook for the property tax at that point. Like I'm saying, if I was to take out one of these 50-year mortgages right now.
But there's something that there's a way you set up. Like you're not supposed to just leave a house. You're supposed to, again, this is like from financial stuff set up a trust. You have to set up a trust. Like you don't just like leave your kids your house. You have to set up a certain trust and stuff so that they don't get hit with all those extra funding. Again, I'm not like a financial expert, but like Nicole Lapin, I think is who I like. Mrs. Dow Jones is good, and then I think it's Nicole Lapin who has been on Guys We Fucked. I just make sure that name is right. Yeah, if you're interested in stuff like that, I would follow both Mrs. Dow Jones and Nicole Lapin on Instagram. They give a lot of information about stuff like that.
But yeah, just the idea of like, hey, you got like if I was to get one of these 50-year mortgages now, that's not expiring until I'm 87. I'm not making it to 87. Like
right.
So it's like that's going to become my daughter's problem at some point.
Right.
And that feels like.
And instead of increasing the length of the payment plan, we should figure out a way how to just make things more affordable. Period. Hard stop.
Right. Like
right.
If there's a shortage of housing for some reason, let's build more houses. But instead, you have BlackRock buying houses and selling them to each other to artificially inflate the housing market. And Trump is not stopping that. He's like, let's just slap the debt on for another 20 years.
Right. And I think there's so much to be dealing with, like this invention of like these tiny homes and stuff. Like these tiny homes are like very like they look awesome. They're cute. I think they have everything that you need. And I think like we really have like they're, what are they, like $30,000? I mean, obviously you have to like, connect everything, but like they are affordable and they also look like it's like better than living, with some landlord in an apartment building that's, collapsing. Like I just do think that is like a cool option. And I also feel like there's things that we need to do, in America, the way they do in other countries within, like, they have incentives to go to other countries when you are a foreign person. We need to have the same incentives like within America, like move to Montana. There's lots of room there. And, we can't just like let Montana bully us out of their land because they decided that we're going to be like the most racist state. There's like land to be used and we need to spread people out so that they have homes and jobs and things to do. I don't know. I just feel like there's certain places where because we are not racist, people will move, and it's like, all right, well, let's force people into other places because this is actually ridiculous.
Yeah, but we also have,
and there's plenty of poor white people too. So if you don't want immigrants, okay, well then take more poor white people. Sure,
but I mean, there has just been such a lag on infrastructure development in rural areas to the point where it's like it feels like the federal government and the states have put all of their like time, energy, money, funding into building out the infrastructure in major cities to just force people to live in these cities where, like if under Biden, we did 4 years and we couldn't figure out how to get high-speed internet to a single house.
You love that. That's your favorite topic.
It's just a point that I'm making that like, that's not really an option to move to an hour outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because I'm going to be on dial-up internet and I'm not going to be able to do my podcast producing job out there, know?
I mean, I don't think podcast producers should move to rural areas. There are plenty of people who have jobs or skill sets that don't need to be online 24/7. This is more of an option for people who don't live on Instagram,
Yeah, I don't think many of those jobs exist anymore.
Yeah, but I think that there's
they're automating the factories now.
Yeah, but I mean, wasn't there just an article recently? It's like, okay, well, there's certain jobs like electricians and things like that where we're going to need more development, rural areas, America. I don't know. I was just trying to look for more information on developing infrastructure in more rural areas. I mean, obviously that's kind of a hard thing to type in.
Right.
But
it just doesn't feel like there's been any kind of, like there's a reason that when Trump went to visit so many of these places, like the rhetoric from them was like, we feel like we've just been forgotten by the federal government. And right. Trump was like, I won't forget about you. And then immediately did.
Right. I mean, we're, when you just like, look at, there's problems with, if we're getting super rural, there's a lack of access to clean water, poor sanitation, lack of electricity, unemployment, and inadequate road infrastructure. So, I mean, it just seems like, not that you want to make obviously, like, there, you want places to be, beautiful, and you don't want to road through every patch of farm, but it seems like people need to be spread out and we need more room for people, and yikes. All right. That's not great. I mean, I'm not going to solve this right here on the podcast, but all right. Let's move into this other thing that I teased about, the Supreme Court and Donald Trump and the his constant attack on transgender people. This is from The Hill. Supreme Court reinstates Trump administration's transgender passport policy. So the Supreme Court on Thursday ruled President Trump's State Department can prohibit transgender Americans from listing their gender identity on their passports for now. It hands another legal victory for Trump in his efforts to eviscerate what his administration calls gender ideology. The Justice Department brought the emergency appeal after lower courts blocked the passport policy for being rooted in irrational prejudice. Displaying passport holders' sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth. In both cases, the government is merely attesting to a historical fact without subjecting anyone to differential treatment, the majority wrote in its unsigned ruling. The ruling appeared to be along the court's 6-3 ideological lines, though the justices do not have to publicly disclose their votes, which I think they should. In dissent, the court's liberals called the ruling pointless but painful perversion. Such senseless sidestepping of the obvious equitable outcome has become an unfortunate pattern, wrote Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor. So too has my own refusal to look the other way when basic principles are selectively discarded, the dissent continued. Solicitor General D. John Sauer called lower rulings blocking the administration's policy untenable, casting them as infringing on Trump's constitutional authority over foreign affairs. The president's choice to revert to prior policy and rely on biological sex, a choice that bound the State Department, should be the last place for novel equal protection claims or Administrative Procedure Act objections, Sauer wrote in court filings. The State Department policy requires passport holders to use their sex assigned at birth as their sex designation, prohibiting transgender people from matching it with their gender identity. The policy also removed the option for people to select X, leaving male and female as the only two options. I mean, this is like first of all, it's a waste of fucking time. We're talking about people who don't have houses, who can't pay for groceries. What a waste of everyone's time and money. And number two, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares what it says? Your passport is for traveling. I don't think, unless I'm missing something, it fucking matters. Like, why does our sex, besides for identification, our picture's on there? So that's what matters. I mean, so your picture should reflect how you look at that time, hopefully. So someone needs to identify you. So that should be important. So if you're transgender, the picture got to be of you being transgender, not of your, how you came out in the womb. So, okay, great. And if that's matched up, which I'm sure it is, then why are we wasting everyone's time right now? I mean, the only time when I think you should have to disclose your actual, biological sex is in a medical setting, because it would be harmful to you if you didn't, because the doctor then cannot provide the right medical attention and could hurt you, and then could, get in trouble for hurting you because they didn't have the correct information about you. And then obviously there are, I don't want to get into sports and stuff now, but when we're talking about when it's only involving the transgender person, right? Am I missing something? Do you see Mike, what are your thoughts on is this a fight we need to be having right now?
I mean, I don't know. I think Real ID, all of this is a massive overreach. So making it so that you have to have a passport or Real ID to travel, and then
you always had to have a passport to travel
out of the country, sure, but
right.
I mean, domestically, you used to be able to just give them your driver's license,
right?
And now you need a Real ID or a passport. So I'm constantly, worried as hell every time I leave my house to travel domestically, because I can't be losing my passport, and I know. Want to.
It is so annoying to have to bring your passport around. I agree.
Sucks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, look, at the end of the day, they're just trying to match the person up, and it's okay, you're an American who's, I don't know. I don't think we need to be doing this. I will answer that part of the question, but, I don't know.
Well, but it would also make it more confusing to identify someone then if they're trans, they're presenting as trans, and then it says, say you're a trans woman and it says biological male, it says male on your passport, isn't that going to make it more difficult to identify someone, not easier? That's what we're doing. We need to identify people as they move around,
okay,
right?
Fair.
I mean, or I know. I guess it's about outing people, but it's also kind of does anyone ever present do we put a T for trans, or is that just like putting, that's like, I guess that's just like putting a target on someone?
No, it said sex assigned at birth.
No, I'm saying, could that be an option that we bring to the table? I'm saying, like, if we, instead of saying only M or F, it could say T for trans, but I guess that's just like, that feels like it's then targeting people in a way that they don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you ask most trans people, they would say that trans is not, in fact, an identifying thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm a woman. You know, I'm not trans. I'm a woman.
Okay, well, that's a different discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm playing the super woke devil's advocate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to make it's like, okay, it's like I agree we need to be able to like identify people, but again, like it just seems like there's just real, again, you know, as usual, there's just really no reason for this, and in a time when people are having a hard time feeding their families, I just like really can't believe this. Well, you know, sorry, I can believe this is what we're wasting our time on, but I'm just trying to look at like, is there actually any reason for this to be happening? I would say no. This new policy puts transgender, non-binary, and intersex people in potential danger when they use a passport. American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, attorney Chase Strangio warned in court filings, who is trans, just so you know. Strangio and the ACLU represent transgender and non-binary Americans who are suing over the State Department's changes. They argue it violates federal law and constitutional equal protection rights, convincing a federal district judge appointed by former President Biden and later the first U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to halt the policy. It marked the latest case implicating Trump's day one executive order that cracks down on what he calls gender ideology to reach the Supreme Court. Previously, the justices issued emergency orders allowing the administration to enforce its transgender troops ban and cancel diversity-linked health grants. All right. We're kind of coming towards the end here. We do wanted to talk about Beauvais. I mean, me and Mike have been talking about Beauvais all day, but none of us actually know how to pronounce. I'm going to say Beauvais. This is from the BBC. So methane cutting cow. I guess this is technically a cutie's corner. Oh yeah, I had it marked as a cutie's corner. I'm going kind of backwards today. I did kind of like main chunk and then into cutie's corner. The main thing, there wasn't like a main story. The main umbrella that I was going under was last week we kind of covered, as I said, the Democratic Party. And this week, I really wanted to cover a lot of what's happening with Republicans. And so that was kind of the theme, the main story. But this is our cutie's corner. I didn't know if you were going to play the song, Mike. So
I tried to, but it's not showing up on this computer for some reason.
Oh, damn. Okay, so this is from the BBC by Malcolm Pryor from 2 days ago. Methane cutting cow feed trials brought to an end. So a major UK trial of a controversial feed additive designed to reduce emissions of planet-warming methane gas by dairy cows has ended. Arla Foods, owner of the UK's largest dairy cooperative, is now reviewing the results of the tests on 30 farms before any decision on future use is made. The launch of Beauvais supplement trial last year saw concerns raised over food safety as well as misinformation and conspiracy theories posted online, with videos on social media showing people flushing milk down the toilet in protest. Beauvais is now the focus of an investigation in Denmark after farmers raised fresh concerns, but manufacturer DSM Firmenich said the additive was proven effective and safe. The company's spokesman added that it had been successfully used for over 3 years by thousands of farmers in over 25 countries. But he said, "We are aware that in recent days, some farmers have raised concerns about cow health. We are actively engaging with the relevant organizations to ensure that all these concerns are fully investigated and properly addressed." In previously reported cases, Beauvais was not identified as a contributing factor to the health concerns raised. Methane is one of the most potent greenhouse gases, and although it does not hang around in the atmosphere as long as carbon dioxide, it is 28 times stronger over a 100-year period. It is claimed Beauvais, a brand name for the additive 3-nitroxypropanol could reduce cow methane emissions by between 30 to 45% and help farmers be more environmentally friendly.
I'm going to say nitrooxypropanol.
Oh, maybe that's good. It works by suppressing the enzymes in a cow's stomach that create the gas. The supplement, which is added in small quantities to cow feed, has been approved for use by UK regulators, and the UK government has said milk from cows given Bovaer is safe to drink. A Food Standards Agency safety assessment in 2023 concluded that there were no safety concerns when Bovaer is used at the approved dose. But it is not clear whether the additive will be more widely used in the UK, with a spokeswoman for Arla saying the findings of its trial were currently being reviewed. Close monitoring. The National Farmers Union said animal welfare must continue to be our highest priority with any new product. Paul Tompkins, who oversees the NFU Dairy Board, said following reports of investigations in Denmark into the use of methane suppressants, we will continue to monitor the situation for any developments to ensure the impact of any product is known. In Denmark, it is mandatory to use methane-reducing animal feed as part of the government's plan to reduce the environmental impact from agriculture. About 1,400 out of 2,000 dairy farms in Denmark are currently using Bovaer. Jannik Elmegard of the Danish Food and Veterinary Administration told the BBC they were very aware that some herd owners have reported animals showing signs of illness after being fed with Bovaer, but it was unclear how many cows were affected. He added that they were closely monitoring the situation and collecting data so that they could determine the cause of the illnesses, but emphasized that Bovaer had undergone a long and thorough approval process. Denmark's Aarhus University has conducted several studies on the feed additive as part of its research into reducing methane emissions from cows and gives advice to the Danish authorities. Professor Charlotte Lardsson from the university's Department of Animal and Veterinary Sciences said of the concerns raised, the pattern of disease now being described in the media with fever, diarrhea, and in some cases dead cows has never been observed in our extensive studies. But she added that the reports were being taken seriously and researchers were now collecting samples from herds where problems had been reported. A spokesperson for Bovaer manufacturer DSM Firmenich said the company was aware that in recent days some farmers have raised concerns about cow health. We are actively engaging with the relevant organizations to ensure that all these concerns are fully investigated and properly addressed, he explained. In previously reported cases, Bovaer was not identified as a contributing factor to the health concerns raised. He added that animal welfare was the company's highest priority and that Bovaer is a proven effective and safe solution that has been successfully used over 3 years by thousands of farmers in over 25 countries. And now your problem with Bovaer and why you brought it to my attention, Mike, was because it's created by BlackRock, you said?
Well, no, that was just the I think the headline of the post that I sent to you.
Yeah.
Said that it was BlackRock controlled.
Okay. So I'm trying to see. So, because I was like, Bovaer is made by the Dutch Swiss health, nutrition, and bioscience company DSM Firmenich, which is talked about in this article, is black. And, you know, it's interesting.
BlackRock is the largest shareholder in DSM Firmenich.
Okay. And so what, in your opinion, like you think BlackRock is just doing this because they want to monetize something else that is unneeded? Is that your thing?
I think that BlackRock's whole thing at this point, like I was talking about with the example of the houses earlier, is to like socially engineer the planet. You know, like it's gone from beyond return on investment capital to like, okay, there's going to be, you know, at the end of, you know, whatever this American experiment is, there's going to be 4 companies that survive. And BlackRock is like, we are going to be one of them and we will be the new world power. So, you know, getting legislation passed that dictates that this chemical must be added to food in the, under the guise of this being like a green initiative. I don't know, dude. I just don't like major corporations becoming involved in the food supply.
Well, I mean, they have been for a
Right.
while. So
The same thing goes for Bill Gates's appeal being approved for use on organic fruits. Like I just don't
okay, right.
any of it.
So it says additionally, Bovaer is made by DSM Firmenich. Additionally, in the U.S., Elanco Animal Health has secured exclusive licensing rights to develop, manufacture, and commercialize Bovaer. And then I asked about BlackRock, and it said BlackRock holds approximately 2.1% of DSM Firmenich.
I'm seeing over 3%.
All right, that mine's from Market. My source is Market Screener for 2.1%. And then it goes on to say BlackRock reported holding 8.9% of Elanco Animal Health's common stock as of September 30th, 2025. And the source for that is Stock Titan. So that's, interesting, even, have a big hold of the American kind of rights to this. And so it seems like it's obviously it kind of set the stage for it coming to America, which is why we wanted to cover it here. But I guess we have to wait and hold out and see what this investigation into the cow health yields. Yeah.
And I mean, beyond that, though, like, the Food and Drug Administration or whatever the proxy is in England, them saying that, like, yeah, it's safe to drink milk from these cows when it's, provided at, like, the adequate dose. But it's like, okay, well, then I got to trust that somebody who's new to this supplement being added to the food is adding just the right amount. And, like, they talked about this trial being, 60 days, 90 days? Like, we don't have enough long-term data on the effects of people who grow up drinking Bovar cow's milk versus, the regular milk that we're drinking now. I'm also wondering if this is in cow feed, does that milk then get to, can you label that milk organic?
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's now an additive that you're putting into the cow. You're not it's not an additive that you're putting into the milk, but the cow is not eating 100% organic, so can it be organic milk?
All right, let's see. Can cows who are treated with Bovaer produce organic milk? No, they can't. It could not be. It cannot be labeled as organic under current USDA organic rules.
But as I was making the point with the Bill Gates thing earlier, those change as soon as Trump gets 500,000 in crypto purchased. From some company, right? Like Bill Gates, he made some synthetic coating that goes over apples, and that's organic enough for it to get the USDA seal of approval. I don't know. Like, when you were asking me a few months ago, like, do you believe in climate change? When I said I want more research, it's because, in my view, I think a lot of the climate statistics are being used to promote programs like this that I don't necessarily think are for the betterment of the planet or the people on the planet. But it's done under the guise of being altruistic because it's a green crisis.
Right, but I mean, climate change is supported by a lot of scientific evidence.
It's November and I'm not in a hoodie.
Like
that's all I need to know.
Like temperature, sea level, extreme weather events, which we've been, the frequency of that, burning of fossil fuels, that kind of stuff. So I mean, while I agree that many times, like, data, polling, et cetera, can be manipulated to kind of reason anything you want to, and that's like something that I talk about both here and on GWF. You can find a statistic to support really anything that you want to from something. Like, that's the problem with statistics and numbers and polling. You can find a study to kind of support almost anything you want to if you look hard enough. But I mean, there's extensive scientific data for climate change. And I mean, like, yes, can people use that to fearmonger more than necessary and sell a product? Sure. that's the American way. All right. Let's close it out with some fun municipal stuff. So, I love municipal stuff. First thing I want to talk about is I didn't want to, I've just been inundated with Zoran Mamdani, so we don't want to talk about him nonstop. But it is one of the most interesting kind of transitions to watch. Also, oh my God, just if you want some entertainment, I didn't even watch the whole thing yet, but Eric Adams was on Z-Way, and Z-Way interviewed Eric Adams, and I can't even believe that he agreed to this. Really kind of crazy. But he did, and that's going to be his legacy. This is from The Hill, though. There was a lot of talk, as Zoran is announcing his, mayoral team. Lena Khan was announced as the co-chair of Mamdani's mayoral transition team, and people were really excited about that. So I just wanted to talk very briefly about who Lena Khan is and what that could mean. So, and also I want to point out there's some misinformation floating around, because Zoran did a video asking for donations for the transition, and people were like, why the hell are you asking for donations? So first of all, you are not legally allowed to use donations from the regular, the general election campaign portion. You are not allowed to use that towards your transition. These are all the money periods are sectioned off. So even there was a separate thing for the primary. You could raise up to a certain amount before the primary. And then after the primary, going into the general election, there was another fundraising period that had different caps. And now that stops. And he can keep that money. You can keep that money in your account. And use it for future bids, that becomes your campaign money. You can't use it for anything else. You have to use it for running, right? But that does remain. But now that he is, I guess, an elected official or the mayor-elect, the transition period, you have to be because you have to always be clear with people about what they are donating to, I guess, is the point here. So anyway, normally people or the mayor-elect funds their transition period by taking money from special interest groups, and they do it quietly. So what he is doing differently is he's asking for it from, the same grassroots donors who previously funded his campaign, so that he is not funded by special interest groups.
And is that his messaging that he's using?
No. So in the original video, he didn't explain all of this, which I think was a mistake, because that, it's pretty easy to explain. You could just say, you could just tell it like it is. And so I don't know why he didn't do that. I think that was a misstep of his campaign. And maybe they just wanted to simplify the messaging so that they could get right to the ask, because people's attention span is so little. But a lot of other places, hopped in and verified that information. And this all makes sense, having run and having, understood all these, all the financial periods and all the mini audits that happen along the way. I'm still in the midst of closing out my campaign. That's how much you're being watched, what you do with your money. My bank account's literally had been emptied and closed, and it's, you still have to provide documents. So you're very closely watched with what you're doing with your money, which is great. And again, wasn't always the case in New York City. This was something that started in the 70s, but really ramped up quite recently. And so that's great. We see where the money is going. Big pain in the ass if you're running, but I know it's for good. So I just had to also earn an accounting degree while running for mayor, basically. But I just wanted to clear that up because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation floating around. So it is a good thing, but it does make you question. It's man, it really sucks that to get a transparent candidate and someone who is avoiding special interests, that basically the American taxpayers have to donate this much money. But right now, again, hopefully we can find a way to resolve that one day. But right now, this is the only way to kind of get a clean candidate. All right. So, yeah, New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani announced Wednesday that former Federal Trade Commissioner Chair Lina Khan, so the FTC, former FTC Chair Lina Khan, will co-chair his transition team. Khan will lead the transition team alongside former New York City First Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer, former New York City Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services Melanie Hartzog, United Way of New York City CEO Grace Bonilla, and Alana Leopold, an advisor to Mamdani's campaign and aide to former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio.
An all-lady transition staff.
Yeah, that was like big news.
What's he going to do next? Make Ghostbusters again?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I saw that and I was like, we love, but I was also like, is this performative? I don't know, whatever. People were really excited about Lina Khan. It's interesting because it's like, it's like, obviously I don't expect you to, just like get all your Gen Z friends who are politically active into these roles. But, it's a lot of people who have worked for the city of New York for a long time. And it's like, okay, well, I hope that they are open. They realize that what has been going on for too long is not working well and are open to trying things in a new way, not just kind of sinking back into what they know and how they've done things before. So I think it'll be interesting to see if we are able to do something new.
It's frustrating to me when I saw all those Cuomo sexuals talking about Zohran in the same breath as de Blasio, being like, we already had this one time with de Blasio, and then immediately hiring like his top staffer to be, on your transition team is like, dude, stop making Bill Ackman right. I hate that more than anything.
Yeah, I also thought that was a weird choice, but I guess it's like you need, realistically, there's no way Zohran actually knows exactly what he needs. A lot of help. I think he's intelligent and has great ideas, but as far as knowing the lay of the land, I think this is him acknowledging that he needs a lot of people who know what the hell is going on at City Hall in a way that he does not, because he's coming from such a much lower elected position and has not been it, that long, is mostly coming from a background of activism, which is something that I also would have needed to know. I mean, it's like, yeah. It's like, yes, you want to bring new things, but you also need to know people who know the players and know how to play the game. And you just hope that they are able to think outside of the box and take the knowledge that they have and actually use it for good and not kind of sink into these old ways.
Good luck thinking outside the box with that transition team.
We'll see. Again, I thought I had the same thought when I was reading this. I was like, okay, it's like, again, people were very excited about Lina Khan because she really kind of has this, history of cutting down on waste, which, God, New York City needs that. A lot of things being wasted. But we'll see. In a statement, Khan said that by electing the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist, New Yorkers sent a clear message that this week that it's time to build a city that working people can actually afford. Here are 3 things to know about Khan. Prior to the FTC, and she's like 36. She's young too. After graduating from Williams College in 2010, Khan began her antitrust work as a fellow for the Open Markets Program at New America, a think tank dedicated to policy solutions in education, economic security, technology, and other areas. During her 4 years with New America, Khan researched the concentration of power in America's political economy and the evolution of antitrust laws, according to her profile on the think tank's website. She also reported on consolidation in agriculture, finance, technology, media, and commodities. In 2014, her final year at New America, Khan served as policy director for Zephyr Teachout's New York gubernatorial campaign. Teachout, an antitrust lawyer, unsuccessfully challenged incumbent Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary, whom Mamdani defeated twice en route to winning the mayoral race. Cuomo received 63% of the vote to Teachout's 33%. Khan then received her law degree from Yale in 2017 and worked in the office of former FTC Commissioner Rohit Chopra, an appointee of President Trump and the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau under former President Biden. She also worked as counsel to the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Antitrust, Commercial, and Administrative Law, and served as an associate professor at Columbia Law School. And a lot of people were saying like, how did they get Lena Khan? You know, it's almost like she's like too high up to be working for the mayor's office. And, you know, I'm saying maybe Zoran Mamdani's dad is a well-known professor at Columbia, not law, but Columbia. And so maybe there was Columbia connections there. You know, you got to use the connections you got. I don't know. Again, hopefully this is all going to work out. Tenure at FTC in May 2021, Biden nominated Khan as FTC chair. She was confirmed by the Senate the next month via a 69-28 vote, making her the commission's youngest chair in its century-plus history. While in the role, Khan took an aggressive posture toward reining in corporate power. Working with the Justice Department's antitrust division, the FTC under Khan blocked dozens of deals and took on the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, Kroger, and Ticketmaster. So she did a lot of cool things. She got rid of a lot of garbage fees, things like that, which we go on to say here. Khan, citing the interest of consumers, sought to crack down on unfair business practices such as junk fees and mandatory arbitration clauses. Things like when you get, fees for like not having enough money in your bank account. She, got rid of some of those, I believe. Her work received praise from progressives such as Senator Bernie Sanders and conservative populists such as then Senator J.D. Vance. It also garnered the ire of Wall Street. During an interview with the New York Times in June, Khan expanded on her antitrust philosophy, saying that anti-monopoly as a philosophy and framework really adopts a skeptical posture toward unchecked concentrations of economic power. There was just a recognition that there are all sorts of artificial ways that people's liberty is being constrained because of unchecked corporate power. And if the FTC is going to take that on, that's going to be very popular and materially improve people's lives, Khan added. Time since the FTC. Since departing the FTC upon Trump taking office, Khan returned to Columbia Law. According to the school's website, Khan taught a public economic law course this past spring and is currently teaching courses in antitrust and trade regulation and law and economic governance. She is scheduled to teach public economic law again in the spring. Now she is co-heading the transition for Mamdani, who is soon to become the youngest mayor in New York City history, which is a misprint. That's not true. In modern history, yes, that's true, but not in history that we had a younger mayor. Again, I think it was like the 1800s, but that's still history. So it's just like an untrue thing to print. But we saw last night was New Yorkers not just electing a new mayor, but clearly a politics where outside corporate power and money clearly dictate our politics, Khan said at a press conference Wednesday, saying that Mamdani had a clear mandate for change. Khan said she and her co-chairs will make sure that we're building an administration that can hit the ground running on day one and deliver for all New Yorkers. I think that does sound good. So, she certainly has a track record of, seemingly getting things done, which is like what we want to see. And I do like that she is not from the New York world. She's coming from federal government, which I actually think is great. Because you don't want to just pick other people who have only worked in New York, because I don't see how we're then going to get anything new. And the closing story that we'll do today, this one, I don't know how I missed it, but Hugh
Grant, 31 years old.
Huh?
Hugh Grant.
Oh, you're saying the youngest mayor. Yeah, and it was like 1800 something, right?
It was 1889 to 1892 that he was in office.
Yeah.
He was allegedly born on 1858, but he himself claimed to be older when he was running.
Okay.
He claimed he was born in 52. Different reports have him born in 52 and 53, according to him.
But, okay.
This is saying he was born in 58.
Yeah, because when you look up youngest mayor, because this is all stuff I looked up when I was running long before Zoran Mamdani became the Zoran Mamdani that we know now. 11 months later. But yeah, no, because I was like, I looked that up already. Have we had a female mayor? Who is the youngest mayor, etc. Again, I stupidly looked up who was the first female mayor, and I go, oh, shocking. We've never had one. Crazy. Okay. This last article is just like a fun one. Not fun, but chaotic, to get you guys interested in more than just presidential politics. But it's from Newsweek. Democrat Jay Jones wins despite texts fantasizing about killing opponent. Can't believe I missed this one. Juicy. This is from November 4th by Jesus Mesa. Democrat Jay Jones won Virginia's race for Attorney General, NBC News projected, prevailing in spite of a scandal over leaked text messages that showed Jones fantasized about killing a Republican lawmaker and his family. Remarks that rocked the final weeks of the campaign and drew condemnation from both sides of the aisle, though few calls from fellow Democrats for Jones to drop out. Yeah, because you can't at that time, that close to the election day. Jones's victory Tuesday was one of the most closely watched of the night, with analysts looking to see whether Virginia Democrats would split their ticket given Jones's violent texts. In the end, any ticket splitting was not enough to swing the race. Tuesday's result capped a tumultuous final month that saw national Republican condemnation, Democratic hesitation and equivocation, and a barrage of attack ads. Yet voters delivered Jones. I would love to see one of those attack ads. Yet voters delivered Jones a narrow win over Republican incumbent Jason Miyares, who had served in the role since 2022.
That's how bad Trump's doing.
Yeah, I was like, not only did he beat the Republican was the incumbent, and he texts about threatening to, or fantasizing about killing someone. That's a lot. I'm not saying that we all haven't wished someone dead. Again, my therapist famously surprised that it took me as long as I did to wish someone dead. But saying that you want to kill them, that's a different thing. I don't think that's super relatable, hopefully, to everybody. Certainly not relatable to me.
Well, I mean, I'm really excited for these messages to be read now.
The controversy that blew open a typically stayed Attorney General race stemmed from 2022 messages Jones sent to Republican delegate Carrie Coiner. In the text, he imagined a hypothetical scenario where, given 2 bullets and the option of shooting Adolf Hitler, Pol Pot, and then House Speaker Todd Gilbert, he'd choose Gilbert twice. He also referred to Gilbert and his wife as breeding little fascists. Jones admitted, yes.
Funny.
Oh, you just like it?
Look, if I mean...
You're voting for him twice.
I don't know if I'm voting for him twice, but I do. Look, if you're texting a friend, like a confidant, thinking no one else is going to see it, that's a genuinely funny way to express how much you dislike a person.
No, for sure. And I think
I wouldn't even take a shot at Hitler. I would need to be sure that I got this dude.
Right. And I get it. That the thing is, like, when you're running for office, like, you, number one, trust no one. And number two, you can't fucking say shit like in your text.
Also, why are you texting a Republican?
So, like, yeah, like, is it more of a conversation about, is this guy dangerous, or is this more of a conversation about, is this guy just stupid? Like, you don't want a stupid guy who can't keep his mouth shut in office.
He's texting with a Republican. This is from 2022, before he's in the race.
Sure.
It could have been a thing where he's like, hey, I'm trying to get something done, and this guy's really being a pain. Can you help me out here? And then they go back and forth like, oh, what's your problem with this dude? It's like, look, I hate this dude so much that XYZ.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go across the aisle to work with you on this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
You'll make one out.
that feels like, I don't know, dude, if anybody's text messages to anyone were made public, it's never going to look good.
Oh, I know. And that's why I'm not too crazy about these text message or like these group chat reveals, because I mean, you know, there are things, and hopefully, we can tell when reading things like, is this like you just like being edgy with your friends, or is this like some crazy viewpoint you actually hold? That's like something that we have to decipher in this technologically advanced world. Jones admitted to sending the messages after National Review published screenshots in early October. I am embarrassed, ashamed, and sorry, he said in a statement. I cannot take back what I said. I can only take full accountability and offer my sincere apology. He later said he had reached out to Gilbert's family to apologize directly. I'm sure they love that. The scandal engulfed the race almost immediately. Miyares' campaign responded with aggressive attack ads, and national Republicans joined in. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and House Speaker Mike Johnson all called for Jones to withdraw. The Republican Governors Association funneled more than $1.5 million into Virginia down-ballot races to support Miyares and tie Jones to other Democrats. A debate dominated by scandal and sharp exchanges. At their only debate on October 16th at the University of Richmond, the tech scandal took center stage. Meares opened by quoting Abraham Lincoln, "Character is what you do in the dark when no one is watching, but now we know what Jones was doing in the dark." Poetic. Jones again apologized at the debate, saying, "Let me be very clear. I am ashamed, I am embarrassed, and I'm sorry." But he pushed back on the framing, citing examples of violent rhetoric from the right, including from Trump. What about when Donald Trump used incendiary language to incite a riot to try to overturn an election here in this country? Jones asked. "You haven't said a word. I've taken accountability for my mistake. It's time you take accountability too." Jones also sought to draw distinctions on policy. Jason hangs out with Donald Trump at MAGA rallies, he said. "I will see Jason Meares and Donald Trump in court as your next attorney general." The two clashed over law enforcement credentials and public safety. Meares referenced a Richmond Times-Dispatch report of a Virginia trooper clocking Jones at 116 miles per hour, framing him as unfit to enforce the law. Jones was convicted of reckless driving in that case and was sentenced to 1,000 hours of community service. He reportedly served half of those hours with his own political action committee. For his part, Jones cited his record in the Virginia House on human trafficking legislation and his work against ghost gun manufacturers in the D.C. Attorney General's office. When asked whether the Attorney General should act more as a legal or political officer, Jones leaned into the activist role. "That's exactly why we have to hold the president accountable, go after Donald Trump and the bad actions of this administration." Meares countered, "Jay Jones wants fights in Washington. He's running for the wrong office." From political collapse to comeback, polling after the scandal showed steep erosion in Jones's support. A Washington Post Shar School poll conducted before the texting story showed Jones up by 6 points. A week later, internal surveys showed a statistical tie. Republican-backed polling had him under 44%. In the end, Jones was lifted to victory on the back of a strong performance from the top of the Democratic ticket. Abigail Spanberger soundly defeated Republican Winsome Earl Sears in Virginia's gubernatorial race, as we know, who was ahead by 11 points with 70% of the vote in. Spanberger condemned Jones's text, but did not call on him to drop out of the race, a position taken by other Democrats when asked about Jones. Jones, whose campaign leaned heavily on resistance to Trump, was also helped by the state's lengthy early voting process. More than 350,000 votes had already been cast by the time Jones's texts were leaked, cushioning some of that blow. In these partisan times, many people are willing to forgive a great deal from politicians on their team and forgive nothing from people on the other team, which is something new for the Democrats for sure. So, and I've been noticing that a lot more, which I think is like, not great. You want to just like excuse people from everything, but it is necessary and gets us away from this like liberals nitpicking their own mentality that we've had for so long that has really held us back. At one point, the fallout from the text threatened to subsume the governor's race. During a televised debate, Earl Sears pressed Spanberger to disavow Jones. "What if he said it about your 3 children?" she asked in a back and forth that went viral. Spanberger called the messages abhorrent, but stopped short of withdrawing support, saying voters should decide. Ultimately, Jones survived, but not unscathed. He enters the Attorney General's office under a cloud of scrutiny, even among his allies. "It's going to be an awfully painful 4 years," said J. Miles Coleman, associate editor at Sabato's Crystal Ball. He will enter office with a cloud of controversy hanging over him. I mean, well, join the ranks, my friend. All right. So that is our show for this week. If you have anything to send me, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Again, if you want to get on that Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. Get those tickets to GWF Presents Slutsgiving as part of New York Comedy Festival this coming Friday, November 14th, 8 p.m. at the Crown Hill Theater in Brooklyn. Me, Christina Hutchinson, Eric Freddy, special guest, super special guest. It's going to be such a fun time. I can't even why would you even miss it? Truly, Sorry, you're going to have FOMO.
You know how special of a guest it is?
Thanks, bitch. Have a great day.
Jesus Christ, blew my ears out to end that.
You know how special of a
it's
guest-
so special that I wouldn't even tell Mike who it is.
You won't tell me.
I won't.
I've been asking.
Yeah, he DM'd me. He's like, "Can you tell me who it is?" I said, "Sorry, it's a
It
surprise.
hurts my feelings. I guess
Sorry.
I'm going to have to go to Slutsgiving to find out.
You won't be here. You'll be at Skankfest."
I have been known to bend time and space before to be in two places at once.
That's fucking creepy. Oh my God, I just hurt my ears so badly. Okay, and Michael, what do you have to promote?
Okay, big call to action here. I am fighting this weekend. So if you hate the sound of my voice, hate the words that come out of my mouth, you will have the chance to see me get punched in the face at least once or twice this weekend.
True.
Head on over to veeps.com. There's a whole Skankfest collection. I am on the Saturday night Skank Fights. I think it's on the website. It says it's hosted by Louis J. Gomez and Tim Butterly, but I'm the main event. I'm the one who should be on that poster, and I am getting a percentage of the pay-per-view points. So please go buy it. Thank you.
Oh my God. You know, I've watched Mike fight several times, and it's really a treat every time. It's just really a treat every time. And you've never lost, correct?
Never lost at Skankfest, as far as I can remember.
What do you mean, as far as you can remember?
Well, I mean,
the fights haven't even been going on the whole time.
Yeah, but I've been getting punched in the head, so my memory's going down and down. No, I mean, like I had the loss against Lewis, but that was I'd never boxed before in my life, and that was really more of a pro wrestling angle than it was a boxing match. So I'm going to call myself Skankfest undefeated, and I'm going to keep that streak going this weekend with yet another knockout victory.
All right. Well, please be safe. You know, these fights make me very nervous because it's a lot of, and you're going to push back, but it's truly untrained and unfit fighters going at each other. You shouldn't be fighting.
I am literally as fit as I've been in the last 3 years.
That's a low bar.
It is a low bar.
good.
I'll give it to you. I did gain 80 pounds while Alex was pregnant.
I'm just
and
so
that's in that
nervous
window
about
as well.
people actually getting hurt. I get so nervous watching these.
Nah, we're having fun. I'll end it quickly.
All right.
He won't even feel the shot that puts him out.
Oh my God. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Follow me on Instagram at philanthropygal. Follow Mike at them Harrington. Thank you for being here. Make sure to fact check things that people say before even letting the conversation go on. Keep critically thinking. And remember, cults can exist on both sides of the aisle. There is a liberal MAGA. Are you a part of it? I don't know. Hopefully not. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Peace.